have a quorum. And then we have two sets of minutes, June 4th and July 2nd. Any comments or changes?
Move to accept the minutes, approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes have been accepted. 635 Sagamore is still postponed. We're still waiting on third-party peer review for that application. That's item A under old business. So we'll move to item B under old business, the request of Oak Street Real Estate Capital owner, 100 Durgan Lane owner LLC applicant for property located at 100 Durgan Lane, requesting subdivision approval of a lot line adjustment and site plan review approval for the demolition of the existing buildings and the construction of 360 rental housing units in a mix of 3-story and 4-story buildings with associated site improvements. Said property is Assessor Map 239, Lot 18, and lies within the Gateway Quarter 1 district. Who wants to come up?
Shall we?
What do you guys? Okay, all right.
Doesn't like to play nice. We'll just blame Julia. Now we get movement.
All right,
All right,
take it away.
great. Good afternoon, everybody. Brett Benson, I'm a principal at UTL. Nice to be with you again this afternoon. We're the architects for the project. Joined here by Neil Hansen from Ty and Bond, Nick Aceto from Aceto Landscape Architecture, and Andrew Hayes representing the proponent. Just a couple of quick updates we want to run through with you this afternoon. Peter, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, thanks. Just, to remind everybody of what we're proposing here, 360 market rate residential apartments, studios, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. It's a mix of 3- and 4-story buildings. They're all 12 or 24 units each. One change from the last time around that we were here is that the residential amenity is now going to be incorporated into one of the 4-story residential buildings. Current mix of units is yielding 573 parking spaces. That's fully zoning compliant. Still 3 acres, 130,000 plus square feet of community space. And really trying to focus in on the last couple of weeks, minimizing our impacts to the wetlands buffer and providing an overall decrease in the site impervious surfaces. Next slide, Peter. So we wanted to go through just a couple of quick slides here to supplement all of the documents that are in your latest submission package. This is a comparison of our current proposed development site plan with what we first came to you all with in April. And what you can see here outlined in pink is areas where we've reduced the parking areas and buildings, primarily from the northern buffer. That's the area to the page right on this drawing. And really trying to get the buildings and the overall site plan denser, a more compact development, and away from the buffer as much as possible. And so we've been doing that in increments as we've been coming to you all, and just wanted to show you kind of meaningful progress since April over the last couple of months. Next slide. We also just wanted to back up a little bit and review some of the site constraints here. This is something that we showed all of you in our informal session a number of months ago back in February, but wanted to remind everybody of some of our constraints. So of course there's a property boundary. There are a few easements that are on the site, primarily access easements to the north and to the south. To the north heading off to Motel 6, to the south heading off to Home Depot. On the east, the connection to Durgan Lane, and then there's the Hampton Inn that's kind of surrounded by our site. There's also a number of wetlands that are outlined in green, and of course the buffers that are associated with all of those wetlands, And then finally, that zone of red is the power line transmission easement as it sits relative to our site. So if you go to the next one, Peter. So first and foremost, we've worked really hard to restore previously pervious surfaces within the buffer zone. So that's highlighted in the kind of neon green color here, all of the areas that are going, that are currently impervious and will be transitioning to pervious surfaces, approximately 10,000 square feet. So we're feeling good about those changes, and they're ones that we've done in reaction to some of the comments that we've received from you and other city agencies and commissions. Next one. And kind of coupled with that, and maybe Peter, if you wouldn't mind going back and forth once or twice just to try to highlight the difference here between the big box store that's there now and the kind of sea of asphalt compared to what we're proposing here. So not only is there improvement within the buffer zone, but overall there's 34,000 square feet of new pervious surface that is weaving into that asphalt parking lot and the big box store, really trying to create a network of open spaces and reduce the heat island effect that this big box retail development that is no longer a kind of functioning site, trying to turn this into a much more livable, breathable, more sustainable site plan for the city. And then the next, so finally, this is kind of our proposed site plan, one that we consider very sensitively scaled development, one that is market feasible in terms of the number of units, the parking, the connections, the amenities of the space, but one that provides a lot of benefits to the city as well through community spaces and lower impacts to the buffer zones. I'm going to hand it to Nick just to talk about some of the community spaces over the next couple of slides.
So again, I'm Nick Aceto with Aceto Landscape Architects, and these next few slides, I just want to cover the landscape design intent a little bit. So this slide is highlighting the active community space zones. We have active and passive community spaces on this plan. The active zones are primarily concentrated interior to the site, the character being kind of more structured landscape design to create a sense of outdoor rooms, and also active programming such as benches, places to sit, larger paved areas for gathering, more manicured lawn spaces, and dog park, for example, down on the Plan South portion. And then by contrast, on the next slide, we can see the passive community space zones highlighted here in yellow. They're primarily concentrated within the buffer areas, and the intent there is to provide a transitional landscape character. Again, transitioning in character from the more formal, more manicured, active landscape zones within the interior of the site, transitioning to the more wooded, natural landscape along the periphery. And again, that landscape character is more naturalistic, native plant species like switchgrass, for example, and butterfly weed. And the intent, again, is for quiet enjoyment and really for habitat protection. Next slide. This slide is zooming in a little bit to the wetland buffer park area. So this is an example of that landscape character within the passive community space up toward the northwest corner. You can see some of the ways that we're kind of managing that space is the wooden guardrail, the bench, some interpretive signage. A lot of that landscape will be slope topography. And again, you can kind of see the character of the landscape design, which is more native, natural wildflowers and grasses. And the intent, again, there is for quiet enjoyment, for walking kind of along the edge, and habitat protection. We're also using evergreens and like I mentioned, the wood guardrail bench and signage to help delineate that space from usage from recreation. And then the next slide, this kind of zooms back. You can see that the buffer park area, you can see the guardrail kind of in the background of this shot. This area is looking at the rain garden park, a little bit more programmed space with a little bit more activity incorporated, with the observation deck over the rain garden, which also serves as a stormwater feature to to treat and detain some of the stormwater on site, but similar character to the buffer park with naturalistic plant character, kind of native meadow character, with lots of switchgrass, native perennials for color and interest, with the intent, again, being kind of quiet enjoyment, passive usage, no recreation. Again, slope topography, so not really suitable for active recreation, and then incorporating lots of native plant species. It's also worth highlighting down in the lower left, the character of the existing condition today. That's in a similar location, those two images to the lower left, where, of course, today it's a large surface parking lot with the buffer kind of pushed out toward the periphery there on the right. I think with that, I'll hand it off to Neil to go through the remainder of the items.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Neil Hansen with Ty and Bond. So these were the comments that we received last Friday from staff on our latest submission. So I think we just want to run through these really quick before opening up to any further questions. So actually, send it right back to you, Nick, if you want to take out these first three.
So we believe we are complying with the city landscape island standards. We're providing larger than 9-foot width landscape islands, and we've been very deliberate with where we place those at entry locations to kind of help signify building entries, but also provide some traffic calming throughout the site, recognizing that we have some longer runs of driveways. So we could provide an exhibit if needed next time we come back. Number 2, please update plant quantities on landscape plan sheet L300. We fully intend to do that. We need to work through the quantities with the client a little bit more closely, so we'll bring that back to you. Number 3, if hardscaping is planned for areas within the wetland buffer, bituminous paving and granite steps on the north side were noted here. Please provide impact numbers, sheet L200. We've been in coordination with Neil and his team, and we think we've accounted for all of that impervious hardscape area within the impervious calcs. If there's any further detail that's needed, we can provide that. Let's see. Please share more details on shared multimodal way and how it will promote slow traffic. So we had some questions about this comment, but just generally how we interpret it. The intent of the multimodal way, as we've designed it for community usage, is we're providing traffic calming with street trees, with landscape islands, as I mentioned before, on-street parking. And the intent is really to provide kind of visual, what am I trying to say? Visual friction as you move along the corridor. So naturally, motorists, as they kind of travel through the corridor, they'll slow down with the on-street parking and the islands and those elements that kind of infringe on the travelway. And then additionally, we have, as part of our design, kind of a unique feature, which is this Wooner for drivable courtyard in the center of the site, which we're really excited about. And again, the intent there is to provide some visual friction for motorists to slow down and signify that it's a multi-purpose space for pedestrians and vehicles. We also have been working with Neil and his team on the vertical alignment of that space and creating a bit of topography, about 4 to 6 inches of rise through that plaza space. So motorists, as they turn and they enter that space, there's a little bit of a bump. And then moving on to the next one.
I'll do the next one. So the sheltered parking, does it have solar on it? That's something we continue to study. It is certainly the orientation is set so that it can be optimized for solar, and it'll be shaking out as part of the overall project finances, whether it's solar ready versus solar on the first day. That's something that we continue to study, but we're making sure that as we design that parking shelter that it can very easily accommodate solar panels. And I'll hand it over to Andrew about the lots 2 and 3 and also the vehicular access.
Sure. Yeah, I think the next two comments ultimately tie together. Our intent here was to preserve the 3 lots that exist today at the property. So the property is consisting of 3 separate lots. So what we have proposed is to redraw those lot lines so that they're not conflicting with the proposed buildings or infrastructure that ultimately we are contemplating and proposing as part of the redevelopment plan. But as a reminder, our intent here is ultimately to have a master easement agreement across the entirety of the site, which will link the three parcels together. And that from the perspective of the city, there ultimately be, one counterparty to look to, and that easement obligation and the cross easement between the parcels that we control as well as our neighbors will all be handled through that master easement agreement.
Yeah, I guess just the last one, the city's still been working on that agreement with Weston and Sampson for the sewer and water. And then additionally, based on previous follow-up with staff, that the third-party review for the stormwater is going to be handled through the alteration terrain permit process with NHDS doing that review. And we do plan to submit that application in conjunction with our next submission to you folks towards the end of this month.
And I did, go ahead.
Sorry, yes, still moving forward. Weston and Sampson sent what we think to be the final version to our legal department yesterday, and that should be finally all the language agreed upon. That was verbally they all agreed on everything, then put it into one document and sent it over. So, on legal's review, yes, it'll be signed.
And TEC, I did talk to them last week. They should have their review done in time for you to have it before the next submission.
Great.
So, is this the last slide?
That's it.
Yep, okay. All right, and open it up for comments, discussion.
Thank you for providing the turning templates for the fire truck. I just had two brief comment was, when you do have your final submission, could you just show what the fire hydrants are so we can understand that, just in case you had any comments to add? And I see you have wayfinding signs. It doesn't really delineate whether you're going to be pointing towards buildings, just that there's addresses and community space signs. It would be great if there could be signs that say, building X, Y, and Z this way. Everyone's going to need that, and we would use that too.
Agreed.
It looked like from one of your images that previously you had a path going through the rain garden, and now you have kind of a viewing platform over it. It looks like a lot easier to maintain the rain garden with that. It looks like a big improvement.
Yeah, we
That's
pulled
correct.
back a little bit.
And then and those seating won't be a problem for mowing and getting around in there. Are they going to be all right? And then the edge of the, I guess it's probably beyond that, or the last slide I think you had before that, there was the guardrail. I don't know if that's new or to keep people out of that buffer like they were talking about. That's a new improvement. That looks good to keep people out. Discourage it at least. I don't think it's prohibited completely, but it reduces that foot traffic that people were concerned about. So that looks good to me.
I think, Peter, just to add on to that, you're absolutely correct in regards to the boardwalk as that came out of the design in favor of kind of that observation deck. We also, as previously noted, have pulled out the portion of the rain garden closest to the buffer from the community space. So that zone has also been removed.
Yeah.
And I think in earlier conversations, just wanted to kind of underscore the fact that within the existing site today, there's about 60,000 square feet of impervious area within the buffer. As Brett noted, we're reducing that to about 50,000 square feet, so that's about a 17+% improvement and restoration of over existing conditions today. In addition to that, as Brett alluded, 34,000 square feet on the entire site is being converted from impervious to pervious surface. So just shy of an acre of the parcel of the overall site is being returned to pervious materials.
Great, that's great. And then there was one of the first bullets was about the landscaped.
In here?
Yeah, the landscape islands. Isn't that the reg that says every 10 spaces you're supposed to have? I was looking for I didn't get to it yet, but.
The island for every 10 spaces
Yeah.
is in the character-based zoning.
It's not in this one.
It's
so
not in the
That might
gateway.
have been a confusion.
And that's citing a site plan regulation as well, not the zoning.
Yeah.
So we're complying with the the site plan regulation 6.6, and that's
And you're good.
sufficient, okay.
Yep.
Another question, so my screen keeps freezing up, I can't quite see, but the different, the parcel lines or the lot lines, they're going to be reconfigured in such a way that they won't be going through a building, so you won't have to have any sort of agreement within, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so it'll
correct.
be very clean, every building will be on its own parcel. and-
Yeah, every building, yeah, all the lot lines will not be running through the buildings, and then all of the existing access and utility easements will get cleaned up and reconfigured for the new roadway layout. Those are depicted graphically as part of the package, and they'll be formalized once we get site plan approval.
Okay.
And probably Shanti, in terms of the building code treatment of it, there will be kind of imaginary lot lines drawn between each of the buildings to dictate fire separation distance and those types of things.
Okay. Yeah.
And just to note, I know there's been a number of questions kind of related to the easement agreements. We are continuing conversations with our butters. Those conversations are moving along smoothly. As Neil alluded, I think our intent here would ultimately be to record those easements as a condition precedent to, the building permit, but not before the approvals are issued. That being said, we're happy to share any additional documentation beyond the easement agreements or proposed easements that we've submitted as part of the package, but let us know if there's anything further that would be helpful in that regard.
That's typically right. The process is, as you stated, later in the process, you'll have to record them. But we need an easement plan just showing all the easements, and I think the most complicated one is going to be all the cross easements for utilities between the lots.
Yep.
We're going to need to see that, too.
And I believe we have that, but
Yeah, they're in the plan set, towards the end of the site plan set. There's separate sheets for access easements, utility easements, and community space easements.
Yep. All two.
and if it's helpful, we can certainly set up a separate meeting to kind of go through that in greater detail to make sure it's clearly depicted between the various components, just so that there's no confusion there.
Yeah, when you submit the the final set, we'll review them, we might have questions
Sure.
before that. That's good to catch before that.
Just a couple of things before you go today. One, I know it's been kind of an extraordinary effort trying to get Weston Sampson under contract, and we apologize for that. But just so you understand where we are at this point, the department really hasn't even started reviewing your plans yet because we've been waiting for Weston Sampson's reviews. So you don't have any of our comments, any of our engineering comments yet. So those will be forthcoming as soon as we can get kind of the baseline Weston Sampson reviews going, which should be soon. So that's point number one. Point number two, I'm still not happy with the access to the hotel over by Building 1. I think the hotel should have its own driveway off the access road, and I'm going to maintain that position through this entire design process. So we can either agree to have friction throughout the entire thing, or we can look at doing a redesign in there. And I think, as far as, did we decide on the stormwater?
I talked to Eric about it on Wednesday. He was,
I think we're probably going to be okay with letting site-specific do the review and then seeing what their comments are, and then leaving that up. So if you want to submit things to DES and just keep us in the loop with comments, I guess we're going to be okay with that, see where we go from there.
Okay.
To address your comment regarding the hotel access, we have studied a number of different configurations. Ultimately, we felt that each was inferior for different reasons. We can schedule a follow-up to discuss those in more detail.
And then on the oval or circle coming into the site, there was a rain garden beside it. Is there not? The rain garden moved inside of it now? Is that? or you
As
just
part of this
need-
package, we didn't make that change, but for the plans that were submitted to the Conservation Commission, we removed that rain garden from the plan.
Okay. But you didn't need it. You didn't need to put it in the
We
middle.
reconfigured the rest of the drainage system to divert it to the other treatment practices that we already had on site.
So that must be a planted island? basically?
Yeah.
Planted, whatever you call it, oval?
Yes.
Okay.
Will be city stormwater going to that other area?
From the end of Durgan Lane.
Yeah? I'm not sure which way that's going, which way downhill that is.
It goes to the north, and I believe we kept it going to the north. Because right now, that parking lot that's under the utility lines is that system's all tied in with the Durgan Lane system, and then it discharges to the north. So we're removing part of it, and then I think we had to reroute some of it, but it's still going to the north.
Okay.
And I don't recall if there's an existing easement for that or not, but if not, we would need to have one.
I have no idea, but certainly we want to keep city stormwater city and
Yeah.
private stormwater private, if possible.
Yeah, I think we had it separated. I'll have to confirm that, and then we can show a proposed easement on that moving forward.
So, and then once we get the third-party reports in, we'll have to have discussions regarding off-site improvements, which we haven't even broached the subject of yet, so. That's all. Thank you.
All right, we'll open it up for any public comment, either in person or on Zoom.
You can sit right here, sure.
Go ahead, Mikey.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
He might come back.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with the police.
That's exactly. Good morning, well, it's afternoon. Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. I sent a letter. It was a lot to read. I missed some things, I'm sure, and that's why they pay you the big bucks and they don't pay me anything. But I'm hoping that what was presented today in regards to the northern park that was discussed at the Conservation Committee to be passive, it looks like they are doing that. At least that's the way I understand it. And if that's passive, the noise abatement will not be necessary on that side, which I put in my letter. I have some concerns about the traffic study. It seems to me that it goes from Motel 6 to the site, but it doesn't go from the site to Home Depot. And I don't know about anybody else, but when I come into the city, I often go that way, right through that shortcut. And I think a lot of other people do. I'm not usually alone. There's usually a lot of big trucks that are heading that way to go to Home Depot in the morning. So it just seemed like that was missing. Maybe I missed it myself, but I thought that should be looked at in more detail. I think the fastest way to get to Pease, a planning board member shared that if he's at Home Depot to get to Pease, he does not go back towards Motel 6, although he may have come in that way. He actually gets back on the Spalding and takes that first exit, which, yes, I agree, is the fastest way there, because if you have to cut across to get to Greenland, that's the way I go as well. So that really needs to be considered, that it's not easy to go the other way through that parking lot at Motel 6. And I can't think of any way to fix there. There used to be a pool in the back. I don't know if there still is, but that parking lot is a real sticking point. And I remember that Eric Evie brought up that the possibility of making that one-way in or making it one-way in any way. Maybe the hotel doesn't want to do that, but that might be a logical way to solve that problem there. At the Conservation Commission on July 10th, all of this information was not presented in the packet, at least I didn't see it. So the northern tier is showing a passive park, which would be great all the way along. A suggestion was made at the Conservation Commission that the entrance coming in, I have that on the last page, but you can bring it up if you want to in the things. Peter, if you want to, you could bring up that page that shows where the entrances are, where the oval was that you just were looking at, that one there. So if you come in from Motel 6 and you made an L there, you went straight in and then straight up to that second parking lot by Building 12, It would be a lot easier for the fire department. It would also move that road that's sitting in the 100-foot buffer. You just have to move it slightly out. You would lose 3 parking spaces, but it would make it a straight run for the fire department to go straight in there instead of playing slalom all the way in. But that was my 2 cents on that. The L idea was just to get it out of the wetlands, but then I was thinking about having driven in a fire truck before, ridden in one to go on calls. It is a lot more comfortable to be able to just do a straight run instead of slaloming through things. But that's my 2 cents, something to consider. In regard to the drainage, I was glad that they included the coastal and Great Bay precipitation increases. I was curious where the rain garden's going to drain to. That's over there at the beginning, right by the Motel 6 entrance. And there used to be a retaining wall that was in the 100-foot buffer, which is not showing anymore. I'm going to assume that it was removed because you moved the road, but I just thought I was curious about what happened to that. It was never mentioned again. That's my 2 cents. Thank you very much for working hard to try to get this out of the wetlands. I'm all about getting it all out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom? All right, we'll close the public comment portion. Any further comments at this point? Do you all have any other questions? Or you headed to Concom this month again?
Yep.
Is that next week?
Next Wednesday, I believe.
Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, yeah.
All right, we'll just wait for the third-party reviews and entertain a motion to postpone or continue.
So moved.
Yep.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on to new business. The request of Ritchie Lumber applicant, Portsmouth Hardware and Lumber LLC owner for property located at 105 Bartlett Street, requesting site plan review for the demolition of existing sheds and construction of 3 new storage sheds with associated site improvements. Said property is located on Assessor Map 157, Lot 2, and lies within the Character District 4W. Welcome.
Peter, can I correct that, though? It's only 2 sheds. We removed the 3rd shed. That should have been in my narrative.
Okay. Well, this notice was sent out, I think, before we got that.
Okay.
so.
Okay. All right.
We can
Thank you for
correct
having
that.
us this afternoon. Let me get my narrative here. I'm Pat Moretti. I'm the current president of Ritchie Lumber and represent the company in this request. I have with me today Ed Hayes, former owner and president of Ritchie Lumber, now the owner of the property that we leased the lumberyard from. Ed is addressing anything that's relative to the property itself and the project that is forthcoming behind us and lend his insights to our proposal. Bill Hanson is here from Ty and Bond. They've created many of the documents for the proposal referencing the land use, positioning of the buildings relative to the easements and lot lines, traffic patterns, and other items needed for the request. Clint Darnell was not able to attend. Brett Kelly will be stepping in for any questions that relate to the buildings themselves. Brett is the senior vice president of Kodiak Building Partners, which is the owner of Ritchie Lumber, the business itself, and he's very familiar with the building process of our structures and has done a number of buildings across the country similar to ours. As everybody in the committee knows, we've been working on this for quite a while. This actually dates back almost 2.5 years right now with the first phase of our project, which was to build those 2 prior buildings that we have on the back of the property and take down some of our old wooden sheds. We were on to our phase 2, or step 2, I should actually state, to remove, again, some additional old 1980s wood structures that are inefficient for our property and replace them with new modern operating structures. In our original proposal, we had asked for a exception from the committee and to build a barn that actually would overhang the easement of the property, the current easement for the sewer going through our property. After much hard work and work by Ty and Bond and their associates, The soil conditions did not lend itself to doing it efficiently without putting some significant foundations into the property, well beyond the scope of what we were budgeting for the project. So we have since removed anything that has easement impact and moved the new, what we're calling shed barn, off the easement as far as, Neil will address it, the footage, but I believe it's about 10 or 11 feet would be the closest impact we would have to that current easement, so we're quite a ways back. As noted, the building's in the position and size to specification the city allows in the character district, along with the variances that have been granted to the property. Our operating hours, and in no way, I'm sorry, reading too fast. Their operating hours and the way the new lumber sheds will be constructed, they will not requiring any lighting at all. They'll have light panels around the exterior of the panels, which will allow light in during operational hours. The stormwater separation will be addressed during the construction of these buildings moves forward, so we minimize the impact to the yard and the parking lot, and Ed will address that a little bit here in a few minutes. There are now there were, and there still are, 3 exit points and entry points in the yard. Ty and Bond has addressed in the submittals the fire access routes and the truck entrances and exit points to show where the allowance is. There will be no change into the exterior lighting. Whatever exists will be in the existing, will remain. And the pole, which is the pole lighting and the lighting that's currently on our buildings. We did look into the fire suppression requirements and have been researched. I submitted that to the committee in the documents. Certainly, I look for any comments on that if there's some comments. I did quite a bit of research, and as far as I can tell, we are in the district or the building type of storage. Neil and his team has explored whether we exceed the distance required for the construction of the railroad tracks, and I believe we are over 35 feet from the nearest point of that operation. The existing fencing will remain as is, and any new fencing will conform to the city requirements, or we will seek a variance for approval for any changes in the fencing operation or fencing lines and heights. The new buildings will be constructed of steel racking, steel beams, and steel panels on a proper concrete foundation. The current buildings are old wood, technically a fire hazard, and just this extent into their lives. In the comments that were sent to us on Friday, one of the comments was about the green building statement. I did a bunch of research on it. I actually wrote a statement, which I will supply to the committee at the end of the meeting. I can find this construction will have no impact on the water, air, quality, energy, or services that we require for the property to use. Theoretically, these buildings are stagnant buildings into the open air. And let's see what else is. I guess I'll turn it over to Ed to sort of talk about the stormwater separation, the railroad commission, and some other items.
So you know that we have a large project of apartments that will be started, I believe, at the end of the year behind us, and in coordinating with that project, we're going to separate the stormwater from the city sewer. And that's in the plans. That's, I think everyone's pretty familiar with. Railroad, Ritchie Lumber and my family and I have always enjoyed a great relationship with officials of the railroad. And if we have to work on their land to build these, it's going to be no problem to get a license or temporary easement to do that, like we have in the past.
Yeah. That should be.
And what else was it?
The lot merger.
So the lot merger, I mean, that's something that's acceptable to me as the property owner, or we could do a lot line adjustment perhaps, so that we just take a little bit of land from the lot that's on Bartlett Street and give it to the other lot to make the setbacks work, or whatever this committee thinks is more appropriate or easier or whatever is totally fine with me. Because this is going to remain a lumber yard for a long time, so it doesn't really matter to me one way or another. I'll have to talk to Neil about that, what's the easiest thing for you to do.
Right, the issue, Ed, was that this lot line was going through that building.
Right, okay, yeah, so I guess the...
So, you know, we thought the easiest thing was just, if you had no problem, was just to merge the lots, and then
Totally, yeah.
otherwise...
This proposed plan shows the lots being merged.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, that was the issue.
Okay. All right, do you have any questions of me at this point?
The railroad company, which railroad have you been dealing with? Now that CSX has bought Pan Am, have you had any dealings with CSX?
I have not personally, but it's the same people that are, I mean, they're just a different name. They used to be Pan Am, and now before that, they were Boston and Maine.
Yeah, I mean, it's different people. I know other projects abutting the railroad have had difficulties with them, so.
I've talked to my good friend in contact, and he said it's still the same. People that deal with the real estate part of it are the same, so.
Yeah, just want to double check and make sure.
You know, believe me.
So Ed, you may have already said this, and I was digging into the plans when you were speaking, but, so with respect to kind of an ongoing repair and maintenance with the backside of those buildings, because you'll need to periodically get back there, but you'll be on the railroad's property, right? So is that where the easement comes into play? You're going to get some sort of a permission, so in perpetuity that...
No, Shanti, basically, when we build them, we have to go onto their property to dig footings and so forth. Once the building's built, there will be enough, there'll be a couple feet, I think, to be able to work.
Okay.
They're steel-sided buildings, so they're not going to require much.
Just painting every 30 years, 40
Maybe
years,
something like
maybe,
that,
yeah.
you know, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So they're kind of like set it and forget it type buildings.
Okay, so then there is a little, it wasn't clear, it says .97, like there's a distance in proposed building number 1 to what appears to be the property line, and there's a dimension of .97 feet. So it gets pretty close in spaces.
It's close, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I just wanted to bring up, so if you're, feeling like you're going to be able to maintain your building and initially you're going to have permission, obviously, to do the work, because
Right.
you're going to have equipment out there and...
Right. And
Okay.
basically, we dig from this side. There's very little equipment that we're going to,
Sure.
very little disturbance
Yep,
on the
okay.
railroad property, because everything's from our side of the property.
Yeah. And then the other thing, too, is just, I think we do agree with the evaluator, the code path that you're providing to show that these buildings don't need to be sprinklered, because you're putting 5 feet, so you get to reset every time you get that 5-foot separation. You could go closer. You just have to use fire-resistant construction, or maybe a 3-hour, like if you wanted to do a CMU wall. For some reason, you guys wanted those closer,
Yeah.
it looks fine. But there is always a way. You could still have done that without sprinklering.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know.
The only thing that, and yes, I agree, it doesn't need to be sprinkled, that Deputy Chief Howard brought up to me, he was looking for a fire alarm system or fire detection in the building.
He was looking for it for Building 3, which is not part of this proposal.
That's that one.
I see. Okay. I wasn't here, I wanted to bring it up, and the only thing was regarding site access, the layout was fine. Just consider that any padlocking you have is going to have to go through our Knox system. You'll have to use us, and if there's an electronic gate, there'll be an override Knox key switch you'll have to provide. I know it's a small thing, but it's a site thing, so I mention it now.
No, it's fine. Though I
Do
could-
you guys have keys now to our gates?
No.
Okay.
They have the magic key.
Right. So we're going to get it out of the way, right? But we prefer not to break your stuff, especially when it's not a fire situation. It's minor in the grand scheme of things, so.
I have a question. Does the police department have the Knox key too?
They do not for your property, no.
Okay,
They
but-
don't have only the fire department has access to fire department Knox boxes.
Because a lot of times when there's a situation, they're climbing the fence.
Well, in an emergency, they can call us for access if it's deemed appropriate by the officer. So, yeah, it's not unheard of. It just depends on the situation. We don't let anyone in,
Okay.
just because.
No, I just want to make, because that's a question I never asked. I figured this time I asked it.
I'll get you offline about the whole thing.
Okay, thank you.
Access, yeah.
Could break the lock in the chain. I mean,
Oh, no, it would
we sell it anyway.
No. It's the time to do it, depending on how hardened the lock-in is. It might take 2 minutes to cut a lock if it's a hardened lock, and I can open with a key in 2 seconds. It's just seconds matter.
Okay.
No.
And we'll address that, definitely.
So building 3, you're not going to do it all? Or
Building 3 will be down the road, so in talking with, I'll let Neil sort of address a little bit of this, but in looking at Building 3, the ground down there is not as good as it is up where we are right now, so that's going to take us some significant work to get that foundation in, so looking at the budget, we are way out of the budget with that building, so that's definitely down the road.
Well, Pat, you had also mentioned site lighting and not having any electricity in the building.
Yeah, so the 2 buildings we're putting up now, right now, we have electricity in one of the buildings.
Okay.
We do not plan on putting any electricity in these buildings at all. We close at 4:30 now, so.
Okay.
there's-
That was my only concern, was egress if necessary, lighting if it was not lit outside.
Yeah, no,
that's
so
all.
the plan, unless down the road we decide open nights, then we'd have to come back as to a committee and ask the question again. But right now, we see no reason to put lighting in there at all. They're wide open buildings, light can get through. Right where the parking lot now is, there's a three-tiered light that shines into basically all the buildings there anyway, so we'll have light.
Sure. I just want to make sure I don't want you to have to do underground work later, and that's all. So.
No. No. Let's see here. Neil, do you want to address anything with traffic or foundation or anything that came up?
Nothing specific. I think the one comment we did get was a question about the setback from the sewer easement. So I did pull those dimensions, and we can have them on the plan moving forward. But the building 1 footing is 11.4 feet from the edge of the easement and 21.4 feet from the center line of the sewer. Building 2 is back farther, is 25.5 feet from the footing to the edge of the easement and 35.5 feet to the center line of the sewer.
And there was a comment about contacting Rob Previty, and he's the attorney for the other project, the 150 apartments, and I did contact him. I called him today and left a voicemail, and he hasn't called me back yet, but he's my neighbor, so I'm sure I'll see him at some point too.
So one of the comments that came from Friday, and I've asked Neil, and we're a little confused on, I just want to make sure we address this properly. The maintenance easement, what are we looking for? What's the city looking for that?
So that was from, it was from DPW. We, or at least our foreman and DPW, have a concern with, if there's an issue with the sewer main, we're going to need to dig pretty deep because it's very deep. So they wanted to make sure we could establish our shoring enough to protect your guys' foundations when we dig very deep within 20 feet of your foundations. So we were looking to get the right to put shoring slightly farther out should we need to work on our sewer main, possibly outside of the existing easement there.
I don't see.
No problem, whatever you guys need.
Jim and Doug think it is. Okay.
Do you need a letter from us or something stating that?
The other thing, too, the invert of the sewer there is only about 8 feet deep.
Okay.
So I don't,
For whatever reason, my guys were thinking it was closer to 12.
the invert's around.
Fine, but maybe just an order on the plan that, should the sewer need attention, that you agree that within limits, within reason, of course, to allow us to maintain the sewer.
Sure.
And we could leave it that open and broad, and I think that's a reasonable combination for both parties.
Mm-hmm. I see no problem with that. And then I did, on item 6 from Friday, I created a statement, which again I can supply to the committee today, that basically says we're not pursuing building 3 at this time. Just so there's, even though I noted a number of times on the plan, I assume that you want something else with my signature on saying that, so I created that.
We can also remove it from the site plan when it goes to
Yeah, we
planning
can-
board.
yeah,
Right,
because
that's
we
what I was
took
gonna
it
say,
off.
and
It
Probably
just-
the cleanest. Yeah.
Just because we were up against
Yep.
the time constraint on this, we just,
And then later, when you're ready, you can just do an amended plan.
yeah, resubmit, yeah.
So the last thing I had, I guess, is the truck turning movements. Last time, I believe there was some traffic movements that were impossible. And,
Yeah, so we submitted the fire truck showing entry through the middle gate and from Bartlett Street. WB 62 can make the turn in and out through the rear, and a WB 67 can come in from Bartlett and out through the rear. Maybe I got that backwards. In from the rear.
all right, so when you get deliveries, what's the traffic pattern going to be? That's the question.
Track pattern is going to,
Fire truck I'm not concerned about because the 67s are much bigger than the fire truck.
So the 67 would need to come in through the rear of the site.
Okay, so that's going to be and what's the normal delivery size?
rear right now.
67 is the normal delivery size?
Yeah.
The lumber deliveries? Okay,
Yep.
so that's going to come in the rear gate as a matter of course. And it's going to exit on the other side on the other side.
It's gonna go straight through.
Straight through.
You show it exiting on the,
Yeah.
you don't show it exiting onto Bartlett, but.
Yes, they do. It's on sheet,
I don't think we did because it's an existing condition that's done now.
It shows the fire truck.
Will it exit the same way the fire truck is, or?
Yes.
yeah.
Why does it have to come in the main driveway then? Why can't it come in the other way, if it can go out that way?
It can come either way.
Yeah, I guess technically.
The curb line on the rear is not wide enough for it to make that left turn out going
Oh, to go out
left to
that way.
right. Well, the program can't make it. I'm sure a skilled truck driver could. It's like inches. And then any truck smaller than a 67 could go either way.
So it's the right turn in, that, the other, is the whole movement you're saying?
Left turn out.
This turn out.
Yeah, with the 67.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the 67. If you go to the 67 diagram.
It's one more. Down. Yeah, there you go. That's the 67.
Yeah, so he's coming in this way
Yep.
and then going out this way. The reason you can't come in this way,
It's the turn in the rear.
if he's making that turn, how come you can't make it?
We ran it. It was clipping the curb by like 3 or 4 inches on the inside.
But we really want them to exit the main driveway, don't we, Eric?
It would be easier to, yeah.
No, I mean, as far as trucks getting into that intersection,
Oh, right here?
yeah? Because otherwise, they're gonna be right there at Keith Street.
Yeah. I mean, if you can make it go both ways, that'd be great.
I mean, we could adjust the curb line on the back since they obviously haven't started that project yet.
Yeah, I would think that we would want you, I mean, the lower driveway, the secondary driveway, I don't think we have any problem with you bringing trucks in that way. But exiting trucks onto Bartlett Street, I think should be using the main road.
Should come out farther from the intersection if possible.
Keeps it up, yeah.
Yeah. Can they not make it through the gate here? Or-
No.
They go out now, but the problem is there's no curb now. The gate's actually only 20 feet, that's 30, almost 30 feet, and he straightens out as he goes through the gate. I didn't run the test like he did, but I did it with lines on a paper, and he straightens out, but there's just not enough room.
Once he gets here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smaller trucks, no problem, the long ones, no.
Well, if you can look at that and see if you can get a little bit more room at the rear there. Seems like you should be able to do a left if you can do it.
Yeah, it should be a pretty minor adjustment.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't have any problem making that revision to get it to work.
Mhm.
All right, any public comment? Spreader? No? Let me check Zoom. No one's on Zoom. All right, any further discussion or comments or questions?
Send it out.
Is that a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second to recommend the planning board? Any
With the,
conditions?
with the
Updated
traffic
turning,
movements
updated
You want to look at that before it goes to
and,
planning board?
review by DPW?
Yeah, if you could.
I think, yeah, I think we're fine approving this as long as the trucks are exiting via the new road
Yeah.
and not allowed to exit the secondary driveway. So that, I am for this as long as we have that condition.
Mhm.
So if you can get it to Eric well in advance of the deadline for the planning board,
Yeah, what's the deadline?
maybe the end of the month.
I think the 28th.
28th?
Is the deadline?
Yeah.
The deadline for planning.
Deadline for planning board submission is 28th, so if you can get it to Eric a week before that,
Okay.
is that enough? You gonna be
Yeah.
around?
Yeah.
All right, are you okay with those conditions?
Yeah.
Five conditions?
Sounds good.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you all.